What is going on, everybody? And after a long off season, it is finally time on the OBR streaming network here. It is finally time to get back into the Dawg House, our preview show every week, where I, your host, Michael Keefe, bring in a special guest who covers or talks about or is affiliated with or whatever the Browns' upcoming opponent. And we hash it out to talk about what's going to happen this upcoming week, which is week one. Browns football finally back on the shores of Lake Erie. I know you're excited. I'm excited. Our guest is excited because the Dallas Cowboys are coming into town. We can finally be done talking about all the nonsense of the offseason, all the drama, all the storylines. We're finally ready to just talk football. And I know you're as excited as I am for it. Real quickly, before I bring my special guest in, make sure you are following and tuned into everything the OBR has got going on. The Orange and Brown Report is the oldest and largest Cleveland Browns coverage site in all of Cleveland. So make sure you get to the OBR.com, hit subscribe. And whether you're watching us on YouTube or watching us on Twitch or wherever you're watching, hit subscribe, hit like, and tell your friends, because nobody does it better than the OBR. We've got, I want to say during the season, we're going to have 6 or 7 shows a week. And that doesn't even include pre and post game shows for the games. So make sure you are tuned in all the way. So again, let's get the Dawg House kicked off. And we're going to kick it off right, because just like the Browns are doing, they're kicking off with a big-time game, the 425 game coming up this Sunday, the game of the week. We're going to have Tom Brady in the house, and we're going to have, well, I'm not going to call them what they like to call themselves. I'm not going to call the team what they like to call themselves. We're just going to call them Dallas's team. We're going to have Dallas's team coming in to the shores of Lake Erie, the Dallas Cowboys, the Cleveland Browns, and joining me this week in the Dawg House to talk about that game. He is from 96.7 The Ticket down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He hosts the afternoon drive show called The Hard Line. He does a Substack. We'll talk about that. If you really want to know what Cowboys fans are thinking, what Cowboys people that are covering the team are thinking, check out his Substack. You can check it out at Sturmstack. We'll get into that a little bit. I got to tell you, when I went to my Texas, because you guys know I'm a Texas, I went to Texas A&M. I got a little Texas in me. When I talked to my friends about who should I have on to talk about the Cowboys with, it was unanimously this guy, and he graciously agrees to join us. I'm going to bring him in now. It's Bob Sturm. Bob, welcome into the Dawg House.
Dang, what an unbelievable introduction. I didn't know you were an Aggie. How about that?
I got the ring and everything.
Wow.
Ring and everything.
Okay, so I'm not an Aggie, but my daughter is, and I will be in Kyle Field, or I suppose this may air after the Notre Dame game.
Yes.
So I guess by now we know that it was already a glorious victory, and we could virtually celebrate. So Michael, congratulations on the big win.
Yeah, I sincerely hope so. Listen,
hopefully this ages well.
The attendance of A&M completely changed my college football landscape. I grew up here in Ohio. I didn't go to Ohio State, but you just kind of grow up an Ohio State fan. I never thought that would change. And then I went to my first game at Kyle Field, and I thought, oh, okay, I could get into this.
Highly recommend. Kyle Field's one of a kind. I'm actually a cheesehead. So when people say you cover the Cowboys, try to be unbiased. I am. I actually have a Packers tattoo on my right shoulder. So I'm now I got that at a much younger age when I was probably smart enough, or not smart enough, not to get tattoos of NFL teams when you cover other ones. But yeah, I would compare Kyle Field to Lambeau in many respects. So
yeah,
that's the best praise I can give it.
I don't know why it's like my whole room is orange in here. There we go. I'm ashamed to say the last time I was at Kyle Field, because again, I live in Cleveland. I'm from Cleveland. I just went down there for a couple of years for grad school. I'm ashamed to say the last time I was in Kyle Field, I was down there for a buddy's birthday party. Robert Griffin III was the quarterback for Baylor.
Whoa.
And the Aggies took out Baylor. That was before all the renovations. So I've never seen the updated stadium, but we're going to get that changed. We're going to get that changed.
It's unbelievable right now.
Yeah. So anyways, we did not come in here to talk about the Aggies and Notre Dame.
No.
But I hope you're right on your prediction.
I hope that aged well.
I hope so too. We're going to find out. The people that are watching this are going to be laughing. What we did, we brought you down here to talk about the Browns and the Cowboys. And just to get to know you for a second here, Bob, you talked about being a cheesehead.
Yeah.
Tough situation you were in last year. Tough situation in that playoff game last year. But just kind of tell us
all the way to the Ice Bowl.
Yeah, right.
They cross paths more than I would wish.
Yeah, I'm sure. You should have picked another division or another conference to jump into. Just talk real quick, Bob, just so our people can get to know you here that are going to be watching. Just talk about how you came to cover the Dallas Cowboys, and you're really in depth. You've got a great resume, so just kind of share what you do covering the Cowboys.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess got out of school, about 94, and I did my own radio gig in Virginia for 4 years, and never dreamed I would go to Cowboy Land, but that's who called me. The ticket in Dallas called me in 1998. So, the triplets were aging out a bit. The best of Troy, Emmett, and Michael had already occurred. But I got there to see the end of it. In fact, I was at the game at the Vet in Philly when Michael Irvin's career ended, and they took off his face mask, a very scary injury there. And I was also at the game where LeVar Arrington ended Troy Aikman's career. Wasn't at the game where Emmitt Smith ended because he ended as an Arizona Cardinal, but I saw the end, of the dynasty. And then I saw, the entire, I wrote a piece that was very popular back in January amongst my crowd that's called The Burden of 10,000 Days and Counting, which is 10,000 days since Super Bowl 30 in Tempe, Arizona, when the Cowboys beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when it happened, it was the 5th Super Bowl victory for the Cowboys. And at the time, almost by any measure, especially in the Super Bowl era, the Cowboys were the most successful franchise in professional football, from the time of their birth until that day, 1960 to 1995. It's objectively true. Nobody won more, made it to more Super Bowls, made it to more title games, made it to more playoffs than the Dallas Cowboys between Tom Landry and Jimmy Johnson. So I'm not saying it's my fault, but when I arrived in town, things were going really well. And since I've been here, we've seen nothing but 30 years of frustration. I guess this is my 28th Cowboys season. Man. And I've never seen the fan base more frustrated and frankly, more apathetic. And, I know Cleveland understands a drought, but I would say Dallas maybe is not as prepared as Cleveland for a drought because their fans were raised on a dynasty. So they, they got to sit in first class in the airplane for a while, and now they're in the, now they're back in coach, and it's upsetting. So, it's been 28 seasons of following this franchise. It's never dull. It's exciting. There are millions of people that care dearly about this thing, but to say there's a Groundhog Day element to Cowboys football would probably be a bit of an understatement.
Yeah, Cleveland fans, we had a couple of years of business class. We were almost first class. We were just under first class. We got business class. Then the plane crashed, and that was a problem.
That's a real
plane
problem.
Disappeared into the ocean, and then the new plane. It's like flying Spirit Airlines is the new plane. Although it's getting better.
We have all the analogies of airline travel. I like it.
No, there's always this fun connection with Cleveland because one of the most beloved Cleveland Browns of all time is Bernie Kosar. Now I know this is before you were there.
No, absolutely.
Who took the final snap of one of those Super Bowl victories and took a knee for the Dallas Cowboys?
Yes,
was Bernie Kosar when they won 30-13 over the Buffalo Bills. So he got a ring. We like that he got a ring with the Cowboys down there.
Yeah, and so you didn't ask me this, but my strongest Cleveland Browns tie is that Sam Ratigliano sent my wife and I a wedding gift because she worked in the football office when he was the head coach at Liberty, and I did some radio for them as well. So Coach Sam and his family are friends. At least they were last time we talked to them many years ago, and I know I believe Coach is still with us, right? Yeah. He's getting up, but he ages quite gracefully. But anyway, the Ratiglianos, friends of the family for sure.
I got nervous. He is still with us. I got nervous. He'll make like occasional radio appearances.
Yes,
in a while up here.
Yes. Well, how old is he now?
He was born in 1931, so we're in the 90s.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be getting up there. Okay, well, it's he's a heck of a dude, and I think very highly of Coach Sam.
That is awesome. Okay, so let's just kind of catch up for a minute, Bob,
Sure.
because it's been a couple of off seasons, and neither team last year. Both teams were playoff teams.
Yeah.
The Cowboys, what a season last year, 12-5. They win the NFC East. You go into the playoffs as a 2 seed. The Browns here, 11-6.
Yeah.
It still feels weird to say that. 11-6 though. They come in second in the AFC North. They make the playoffs. They play down in Texas,
Right.
against the Texans, and both games end exactly the opposite of the way we wanted them to. The Cowboys just got punched in the mouth by your Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, you don't emphasize that part.
I know. Yeah, sorry. The Browns obviously lose to the Texans, but just, we could talk a little bit about from the Browns perspective, but talk about from the Cowboys perspective, just how everybody, what was the tone around Dallas going into the offseason, and what's everybody looking for this offseason going into the year?
No, I mean, honestly, that Green Bay game was devastating to this market. It was the last straw. There's no doubt about it. And to understand it, I think you have to kind of go back to 2014 and the Dez catch. And I know Cleveland has their moments. I worked many years with a giant Cleveland guy in terms of not his size, but his fandom, and he was devastated from Red Right 88 and all these moments, the fumble and the drive and everything. So I understand the Browns have their moments, but the Dez catch was. And this sounds hilarious outside of Dallas, but it was like the pinnacle of the Tony Romo era, and that was their year. And they're up in Lambeau, and again, the Cowboys. You can't tell the Cowboys story without the Packers. You can't tell the Packers story without the Cowboys. Going back to Lombardi and Landry and so forth. That they were. You may know this, you may not, but it's worth saying to tell the story. They were coordinators on the same New York Giants team before they both got the job. And so Tom Landry and Vince Lombardi are both coordinators. One's the OC, one's the DC of the Giants under Jim Lee Howell. And they both go get their first head coaching job. And Landry goes to the expansion Cowboys. Lombardi goes to the absolute piss poor Packers.
Right.
And somehow they both are now like the default legend Mount Rushmore names of NFL coaching. And so very early the upstart Cowboys are trying to deal with the dynasty Packers, and then the Packers disappeared into the abyss for 25 years, basically the first 25 years of my life. And then Favre and Holmgren and Reggie White and Ron Wolf kind of flipped the narrative, but they could never beat Dallas. They could never, ever beat Dallas. And it was very frustrating. I want to say 7 straight times they went to Texas Stadium, 7 straight times they lost. One of them was a Thanksgiving Day where Troy Aikman was injured, and it was Jason Garrett starting, and they still beat the Packers. There were 3 different playoff losses in 93, 94, 95 for Green Bay and Favre, and it was like they could never get over the hump. And then finally in 96, the Packers won the Super Bowl, but they didn't have to beat Dallas because Dallas lost to Carolina. And then Carolina ended up playing Green Bay in the NFC title game. This is way more than you asked me, but I think it's worth telling the story.
It's great, man.
So Favre could never really win in Dallas, and he never did in his career. He never did, all the way to the very end. And the very end was a Thursday night game in 2007 at Texas Stadium. Favre is now nearly 40 years old, and he gets knocked out of the game in his last chance. And in that game, it was the only time he played at Texas Stadium against a kid who grew up worshiping him, Tony Romo, Wisconsin kid. Okay, so now Favre is old. Romo is beating him. Favre gets knocked out, and we all know Favre hardly ever missed a game. He gets knocked out of that game in 2007, and here comes this kid named Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers goes into that game at Texas Stadium, and nobody had really known much about him, but he played his butt off, so much so that Ted Thompson and the Packers are like, you know what? It's time to move on from Brett Favre. So that offseason, they flip the page to Aaron Rodgers. Now, what does this have to do with the Cowboys? We didn't think anything, except we come to find out that for the next 15 years, Aaron Rodgers was going to be the Dallas Cowboys boogeyman.
Yeah.
And there would be several times along the way where Aaron Rodgers absolutely ripped the heart out of the Cowboys, including the Dez catch game up in Lambeau, where Tony Romo was playing the best football of his life. And we also didn't know that would be Tony Romo's final playoff game. So his final playoff game looks like a game-winning touchdown pass to Dez Bryant. And of course, at the time, the NFL didn't quite know what a catch was.
Right.
Which they still haven't figured out. But that was basically Tony Romo's last chance. And so here comes rookie Dak Prescott in 2016. And who do they play? Well, they got the 1 seed in the NFC. Who do they play at home in the playoffs? The Green Bay Packers. And everything's going great, except Aaron Rodgers got the ball last. And on 3rd and 20, he throws a miracle pass. And I mean, it's one of the craziest passes you've ever seen. Highly recommend you go find it, because it doesn't make sense how he completed it to Jared Cook, the tight end who hardly spent any time with the Packers, but he made one of their most famous catches, knocked the 1 seed Cowboys out of the 2016 playoffs. And people are like, we hate Aaron Rodgers so much we can't even see straight. Then Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy get a divorce. Mike McCarthy ends up the Cowboys coach. Aaron Rodgers leaves the Packers for the Jets and blows out his Achilles. And so finally, Cowboys fans are like, our long nightmare is over. Aaron Rodgers is out of our life. We can finally beat the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are 5-8 at one point last year, and they enter that wild card game as, I think, a double-digit underdog. It was over a touchdown. And they go in here, and I'm telling you, with Jordan Love, and look, I still love the Packers. There's no doubt about it. I still follow them. I don't miss a down. But they had no business playing with the Dallas Cowboys last January. The Cowboys have gone 12-5, 12-5, 12-5. They are 36-15 in Mike McCarthy's 3 non-COVID seasons as coach of this team. There's one other team that's won 36 games in the last 3 years, Michael. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are a pretty good team.
They're decent.
Only team with the same win-loss record as the Dallas freaking Cowboys is the Kansas City Chiefs, who are a dynasty. Maybe the first 3-peat Super Bowl team in history is about to happen. Who knows? But anyway, to say that the Cowboys were going about their business and almost looking ahead, they would have 2 home games in the playoffs and then maybe an NFC title game in San Francisco, or if the 49ers get knocked off, maybe they can host it. Who knows? The Eagles have fallen on their sword. So this might be the year again. And they go out to pick up their Sunday paper, and a Mack truck absolutely obliterates them. And, I always talk about it on the air. The cool thing about, football is also the uncool thing, which is there's no 7-game series. You can't lose game 1 and be fine.
Right.
If you are not ready at noon on Sunday when your playoff game starts, you're dead. And I'm telling you, before 1 o'clock, so the game started, I think it started at noon, as I recall, that wild card game, Green Bay at Dallas. It wasn't even the biggest game of the day. I think the networks were excited because maybe the Bills Chiefs game was after that, if I recall correctly, but whatever. The point is, the Packers had no chance to win that game, and the game was over by 12:45. Like it was barely out of the first quarter, and the game was done and dusted. And if you want to talk about a lifeless stadium and just people with their head in their hands, and they're just like, they're sick of Mike McCarthy, they're sick of Dak Prescott, they're sick of everything. They just want, waiter, please take this away. I'm tired of this dish. This is awful food. Get this out of here. So I realized that was a 8-minute answer probably for a simple question.
It's all good.
But they are so devastated at what happened in that wild card game. I've never seen this fan base this, frankly, out of belief. They're out of belief. Now it might come back. Hope springs eternal. I know I'm charged up with fresh optimism after 9 months off, but the fact is, I feel like that Green Bay game broke some people. It broke their ability to have the same relationship with Cowboys football. And again, there were 10,000 bad days before that, so it's not like that was wholly wholly surprising, but it turned out to be a rough go.
Yeah, it's I remember watching that game going, oh, Dallas is gonna burn, or Arlington, I guess.
Yeah.
It's gonna burn. Like, it just
if McCarthy is fired by dinner, nobody bats an eye.
Right.
But they didn't do it.
It's interesting, though. You brought up a lot of moments, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, oh yeah, we talk about our moments.
Entire history of the NFL. I'm
correct.
Sorry.
It was great. No, but we always talk about the Browns in terms of our moments. You brought them up. I don't want to repeat them.
Yeah.
But man, the Cowboys have had some moments. I always, the one that I think back on is that Romo botch snap on that field goal in the playoffs.
In Seattle. Yeah.
Oh, just the Dez catch, just devastating stuff. But again, hope springs eternal. You guys go into this offseason. Obviously a big storyline down there that just got worked out was the CeeDee Lamb contract extension. And so, I don't know that anybody really thought that was going to go any other direction than the direction that it went.
Exactly.
I know every time there's a little bit of a contract situation, everybody freaks out about it. I know people up here in Cleveland were like, all right, what do we got to do to bring CeeDee? I'm like, you guys got to stop it. You guys got to stop. CeeDee Lamb's going to be a Cowboy. But they shore up their number one wide receiver, one of the best receivers in the game.
Right.
That's got to help just, get people a little bit more motivated knowing he's locked up.
Yeah, I think he's their best player, to be honest. We did that at my Substack when camp started, is, a super original idea of just kind of ranking the players regardless of position as kind of our version of the top 100, but just do it with Cowboys top 60 or whatever. And CeeDee was my number one. Micah, you could definitely argue Micah Parsons is number one, but I went with CeeDee for various reasons. Maybe the most important one is Micah seems to peter out about Thanksgiving every year. Which you might expect from an undersized pass rusher. So Lamb's incredible. Now he needs to be incredible because they're paying him like $2 million per Sunday, which is tough to wrap your head around. But
I would take it.
It's good being him. It's really good being him.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I think it's just because of the Cowboys and Jerry being that kind of larger than life personality kind of guy. But the Cowboys are like the Yankees of the NFL. And I think when you're outside of Dallas, I don't follow the Cowboys to a T. I don't know everything they're doing all the time, but I just expect them. I never expect them to kind of rebuild. I just expect that they're going to reload every year. I have to tell you, Bob, I took a look at the roster.
Yeah.
And I saw some real strengths on the roster.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're going to be good at the offensive line. They're going to win a lot of games in the trenches on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also a little surprised by some of the other areas. Dak's a really, really good quarterback. But we're going to be throwing Ezekiel Elliott back out there at running back, which is super interesting. The wide receiver group behind CeeDee Lamb is, I think, a little interesting. I know Brandon Cooks is he's a crafty vet at this point. I think we'll say about Brandon Cooks. But the wide receiver situation is pretty interesting on that offense. So when you kind of look at the roster, what are the strengths and the weaknesses of the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, yeah, I think you nailed it pretty well. The strengths are this is an offense that's been extremely productive. They've put up a ton of points, a ton of yards. Now, if you talk to Cowboy fans, especially the self-loathing ones that are kind of cynical about everything, they will tell you that a lot of the statistics from Dak to CeeDee to, top offense this and top point scoring this, they'll tell you a lot of it's bottom feeding. And I am not a big believer in the you ain't played anybody type arguments. I think wins are wins in this league. The worst team in this league has so many unbelievable football players that I don't think I think it's very easy for a college football fan to minimize pro football accomplishments because, college football fan, Ohio State, Texas Longhorn, guys like that, dude, a bad season is 8 wins.
Yes.
And the reason a bad season is 8 wins is like 4 of the teams you're playing can barely even load the bus. Like they can hardly find the stadium. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have talented players. You could put out your third string and still beat them. It's an unfair fight. The NFL, as anybody who's ever tried to gamble knows, the NFL is not like that. The worst teams and the best teams are not separated by as much as you think they are. There are upsets every week. There are survivor pools, survivor competitions in this league where you just have to pick one winner each week and nobody gets out of September. This league is crazy. And so the Cowboys are a very good team. But to be fair, they also seem to peter out when they're playing other heavyweights. And so I hear it all the time about the Miami Dolphins. Okay, we see the win total, we see the stats. Now let's see you beat somebody in a cold weather game that matters. And last year the Cowboys beat everybody except the heavyweights. And so they got killed by the Niners. They got killed up in Buffalo. They split with the Eagles, which is about normal. And then they went to Miami, I want to say on Christmas Eve or something like that, and lost to Miami, which is ironic, I suppose, given what I just said. But somebody has to win when those two.
Well, it's warm weather. Miami's good down there. They're good.
And then you top it off with one and done in the playoffs. So they have very talented players. I think the strength is their offensive line.
Yeah.
Now, storyline du jour is, of course, to start in Cleveland with 2 rookies in your offensive line. Now, I love them both. I think Tyler Guyton's a stud, but good Lord, he's going to play Myles Garrett in his first game. That's crazy. That is we're going to take our finals on the first day of class, everybody. Is that cool?
Yeah, right.
And that's a lot to ask. So if he survives that, and if Dak survives that, and a Jim Schwartz pressure package and just all that, that's that God bless you, man. Cooper Beebe at center, I feel great about, but again, loud stadium. Dude has never played center before in his life, before this season, before this camp. So I don't know if you've seen the video of Cooper Beebe, but he was right after he got drafted, the Cowboys said, we're going to play you at center. And so he's back at home and he has to snap the ball and get practicing. And so he's literally snapping the ball to his mom.
And so I did see that.
His dad's at the kitchen table and he's got his iPhone aimed at his backyard, and there's mom and Cooper Beebe working on his snaps. And so that is his training. And now he's gonna start an NFL game on the road. And so, you would love to play a cupcake, and you would love to be playing at home where you can control the noise and all that. That's not going to happen. So overall for 2024, Michael, I would say the Cowboys have a above average and maybe even excellent offensive line. I think I'm not sure how much that will apply on Sunday, and therefore, it's going to be hit or miss against a Cleveland defense that I'm scared of. So I assume they have a proper fear. They have a good tight end in Jake Ferguson, not a great one. They have an unbelievable wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb who can hit you from the slot. He can hit you from the outside. He can do it all, and he is not afraid. And if there's anything I've been afraid of, especially now that he's making $2 million a Sunday, it would be the fact that he's not afraid. And with his body armor and his body type and everything like that, I feel like he's due to get earholed. He's never really missed a game. He's a durable guy, but you just worry about a guy with that size. The other wide receivers, you mentioned Cooks is the home run guy. Jalen Tolbert is the frustrating third-year guy that's never quite broken out. We all have those guys on our roster.
Yes, we do.
Extremely talented. He's had a good camp. We'll see about it. There's not a ton behind him, although they do have a 6th rounder that we're excited about. But I think I can't imagine he'll even be active on Sunday. Maybe he will be. Ryan Flanoy is absolutely a freak athlete, and he's really flashed in the preseason. But the Cowboys treat the preseason like it's a glorified practice, so there's not much to know there. The big story, of course, is the running back room, and they just signed Dalvin Cook. I can't imagine they'll have him up in week 1. And beyond that, it's Rico Dowdle and Zeke Elliott. And yes, we really are doing Zeke Elliott again. He has the very undesirable distinction of, as he enters his 9th year, his yards per game have dropped all 9 years. And so that's hard to do. I forget the NBA player who improved his scoring average, I think 8 straight years. Might have been Derek Harper. Can't remember who it was, but somebody did that, and that's a neat trick. Yeah. Zeke is going backwards. And so I think he was averaging 110 his rookie year, and now it's like, I don't know, 39 or something like that. Yeah. He's got no juice. He really is a sweet dude. And so I want him to find his zen again, his happiness. It's not his fault Jerry gave him the moon. Actually, it probably is his fault. He was hiding the cowboy until he got his contract. But whatever. The running back, they're definitely going with the theory that running back doesn't matter, which, of course, Cleveland would disagree with. And they do a great job of stockpiling running back talent. But Dallas apparently thinks offensive line is way more important than running back, given by the fact that they have no running backs and that Dalvin Cook can be on the street and probably will be their leading rusher this year. But I just don't know that week 1 is reasonable. Defense real fast. And I don't do anything real fast, do I, Michael?
That's great. This is great.
But defensive tackle has been a massive issue. So in the last couple of weeks, they've signed Linval Joseph, who's 35, who can't wait to play with Mike Zimmer again. But we do know in his day, Joseph was as good as they were as far as run stuffers at the 1 tech. Mozzie Smith has been a massive disappointment entering his 2nd year. There are signs of life, but if you're going to take a nose in the 1st round and get 0, everyone's going to look at you like you're a moron as a GM, which of course we have. And just the idea that we talk about premium positions. And the same team that took a running back with the 5th overall pick, and then shockingly he was basically out of juice at age 25. Then they took a nose tackle with a 1st rounder last year. It didn't work out well. The 3 tech Osio Digizua is very good, but they went and got Jordan Phillips out of Buffalo, which again is another not quite as old as Linval Joseph, but I really like Jordan Phillips, and I think he'll probably play a majority of the snaps. So if you got Jordan Phillips and Linval Joseph, I'm not saying you got 60 snaps out of them, but those are 2 formidable tackles, and they signed them both after like August 20th. So their free agency season, they decided to sit out in March and then really get active in August, which is a weird strategy, but I guess it's way cheaper. You can give everybody the league minimum. On the edge, you have DeMarcus Lawrence, who's great, and Micah Parsons, who's greater. And they drafted another edge who I love is Marshawn Nealon out of Western Michigan in the 2nd round. And I would say if you need a player comp for him, he's kind of a rookie version of DeMarcus Lawrence. So not by any stretch a double-digit sack guy probably, but just a real stout, strong, high motor, stop the run, pass rush, but mostly with motor, not really with technique or moves. But he'll be good. Marshawn Nealon's a really good one. They signed Carl Lawson.
Yeah.
And then cut him and then signed him to the practice squad. So I assume that's like Dalvin Cook. They just don't want to guarantee his contract. He probably won't be active in week 1. Then they'll mysteriously sign him in week 2 and pay him week to week. So that's defensive line. It's good. I don't think it's great, partly because half their defensive line has been signed in the last 2 weeks, and they're all like 30 years old. And that's weird. Linebacker was a complete disaster last year. So they went and got Eric Kendricks to help be Mike Zimmer's quarterback. And they, DeMarvion Overshone from Texas, missed his entire rookie season, but he looks like a stud. Maris Liafu from Notre Dame was their third round guy. He looks very solid. And Damone Clark from LSU. So good athletes, but I would say none of them would be all pro material. And given how bad it was last year, this is probably the big mystery of, can Mike Zimmer fix this defense? We all point to linebacker. And partly we all point to linebackers because Dan Quinn went to Washington, but it was one of those, if you get this job, great. If you don't get this job, we might fire you, because he tried to play the entire season last year in dime. And they were killed, and it made no sense to any of us. Like, they seriously thought they could play with a 205-pound linebacker as their second linebacker. We call that a safety, by the way.
Right.
But, they were playing with 3 safeties and 3 corners the whole year. And Buffalo and San Francisco and Green Bay and Miami absolutely destroyed them because they could not stop the run.
Yeah.
And they never got out of it. That's what's crazy. Dude, they never had any linebackers on their roster to put in. So you're like, well, why do you stay in dime? They literally had no linebackers once Leighton Vander Esch got injured. It made no sense. He's retired because of a neck. But that's the idea now, is that Zim is going to have 7 bigs on the field as often as possible, but always 6. Yeah. I don't think he'll play dime at all. He'll barely play nickel. I'm sure he will in third downs and 2-minute drill, but they're gonna be in base a ton, and they were in base the least in the NFL last year. And then defensive backs, Trayvon Diggs is back. Deron Bland's gonna miss the first month, but they have a chance to have 2 real solid ball hawks there.
Yeah. What did Deron Bland have, like 37 pick sixes last year?
It was
he led the Cowboys in scoring last year.
An NFL record of pick sixes last year. It was the craziest thing because he wasn't even supposed to be starting because they had Stephon Gilmore last year. This year it's Jordan Lewis in the slot, who this isn't the kindest thing to say, but I would say he's great at everything except covering, which is a weird thing to say about a corner.
The thing you want.
Run support, he's great. Blitzing, he's solid. He's a great room guy. He's a great leader, blah, blah, blah. I just don't think he's a good cover corner, which it's kind of the job description. Kalen Carson is a rookie out of Wake Forest. I assume he's going to get the start at the other outside corner. Promising, looks like a dude, but, rookie corners in this league. And then at safety, they're in good shape. Malik Hooker's a really good one. Donovan Wilson's a really good one. I'm forgetting the other. Who's the other starting corner? Why am I breaking or starting safety? 1 second. Let me
Hooker,
grab my.
Donovan Wilson.
Marquise Bell is the third safety.
Yeah.
Marquise Bell's the third safety who was actually the starting linebacker last year. That's the 205-pound linebacker that Dan Quinn tried to use. They moved him back to his actual position. It makes sense. And they just traded for Andrew Booth as a depth corner from Minnesota. So there's Vikings all over. Mike
Zimmer getting his guys.
Yeah. So, again, this team, when you talk about Zeke and you talk about Linval Joseph and Eric Kendricks, they have a really good 2018 roster. We'll see how they look in 2024.
Well, it's funny listening to you talk because there's so many good players. And again, there's no reason to think the Dallas Cowboys aren't going to be just a really good football team again this year.
Right.
But it is. I was interested in just looking around. I'm like, oh, all right. There's here in Cleveland. I got to tell you, roster wise, we feel just really good about pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, you should.
Right? Safeties are great. We got 3 cornerbacks that I think could be starting on any team in the National Football League, plus a young kid that would be up there too as the 4th. The linebackers, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is a rock star.
Yes.
They bring in Jordan Hicks. He's going to be better than what they had next to JOK last year. The defensive line is incredible.
That's right.
And there's depth there, which has been an issue in the past, and now it's not an issue. Wide receivers, you bring in Jerry Jeudy. And you've got Amari Cooper, who, thank you, Cowboys, for a 5th-round pick. That was great. It worked out great for us. And we'll see about some of the other guys at the depth, Cedric Tillman, guys like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, as the Browns go, we got to wait 4 weeks till we see if Nick Chubb is back, but they built up that running back room. Deontay Foreman and Jerome Ford, we think, are going to be really good at just kind of toting the rock while we wait for Chubb to get back.
Yeah.
Really, there are questions at the offensive line, especially in depth, but we do anticipate if they're healthy, that's a really good offensive line.
Yeah, your offensive line is awesome.
There's one question here in Cleveland. There's one.
Yeah.
There's one question. It's the one question. Otherwise, if that question gets answered in a positive way, the Cleveland Browns are going to have an incredible run this year.
Right.
And if that question doesn't get answered so favorably, and it's number 4.
Yeah.
It's Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, I believe, in his starts last year was 5-1. There were times where he didn't look incredible. The Nick Chubb game where Chubb's leg got snapped in half, pretty much the whole Cleveland Browns, Bob, flattened out. I mean, the whole team just went completely flat after that happened early in that Pittsburgh game.
Understandably.
But otherwise, Deshaun had some moments where he looked like, okay. I mean, Deshaun is a main reason they beat Cincinnati in that first game. It was a terrible weather game, and he used his arm and his legs to help them get a win. He looked good in the Tennessee game. He was incredible in the Baltimore Ravens game. They came back and won in the 4th quarter last year.
That's right.
If that's the Deshaun you're going to get, the Cleveland Browns are a contender, an actual contender.
Yeah.
And not.
I mean, they have all the makings of the type of team that is not going to get just a ton of love because of that quarterback question, but otherwise they're ready to win everywhere on the field. And I love watching the Browns play. When the Browns came in here in 2020 and absolutely curb stomped the Cowboys with that running game. Gosh, I don't think he had Chubb that day.
No, he got hurt in that game.
Okay, right away.
But that was what we call that here in Cleveland. That was and it was the only one. It was the Odell Beckham game. It was the only one that happened.
That's right.
In Cleveland, but it happened in that game.
That's right. That game was when we knew that Mike Nolan was a horrible mistake, and he had no idea run fits were just a rumor, and they've had some years where they have these 1-year defensive coordinators that are such a disaster down here, and really maybe the most famous one is 2013 when Monty Kiffin was down here.
Yeah,
and they literally set records. I mean, that was the year of the 51-48 Broncos-Cowboys game that Peyton Manning won, and everybody's like, Romo threw for like 5 touchdowns and 48 points and lost a home game because, the defense was ridiculous, but it's Monty Kiffin. It's like a Pro Football Hall of Fame level coordinator. And whether he lost his fastball or had horrible personnel. And then they did the same thing again with Mike Nolan because I forget, it was COVID. It was a weird time. Yes. They didn't have training camp. They didn't have off season. Mike McCarthy's trying to, kind of fix the
that's his first season
Cowboys. Yeah. And so, we kind of throw that year away. I don't know if that's fair or not, but I clearly remember really getting a face full of Browns offensive line.
We keep that year. That's the year we beat Pittsburgh in the playeps. So
there you go. Yeah.
File that year under a keeper.
And what a wild year it is. And it's funny how Texas A&M is a great example. Some teams recognize 2020 as an actual sports year.
Correct.
And then if it helps, and then if it hurts, then it doesn't count.
100%. It happens. So Bob, let's look at just a couple areas in this matchup that are intriguing. And for me, I do think when we talk about when the Cowboys are on offense, it's how are you going to keep this defense off balance, especially when you never know. I'm going to say this next sentence, and then Ezekiel Elliott's going to run for 155 yards in the game. But in reality, I don't know that any team's going to go in against the Cowboys this year really worried about the run game. So they're going to have to get creative in the pass game and in those kind of short, keep you off balance pop passes, and then taking the top off with CeeDee Lamb. But you've got this pass rush that you cannot let them get into a groove here with the Browns. Myles Garrett. We talked about the new center there. Myles Garrett's going to be lined up right in front of his face a couple times in this game in passing situations. So they're going to move the pass rush around, and you got these corners and safeties that are ready to jump routes. So, I think that's a really interesting element of this game is how does Mike McCarthy and his crew keep that offense? And they're really good at it. They score a lot of points.
Yeah.
But in this situation in Cleveland on the road, how do they keep that defense off balance?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's probably the question when you just try to figure out what we're dealing with and what you would even try as a defense or as an offense, excuse me, with your game plan. And honestly, for me, I think it's important that they do try to run the ball, and I'm sure Mike McCarthy's going to feel the same way. That's not easy. If that defensive line is what I think it is, you're running right into the teeth of a very stout defensive line. I love Zadarius Smith. I don't know how many years he has left in him, but he's just such a fun defensive end who's very similar to DeMarcus Lawrence in many respects, frankly. But you're not gonna run right at him very much. But I expect what we'll see. If I were to guess what Mike McCarthy wants to do, he wants to load up 12 personnel and he wants to keep the down and distance in pretty good shape, because the last thing you can do, obviously, against Jim Schwartz and Myles Garrett is face third and long in a noisy stadium. And so football changes a lot, but honestly, it doesn't. When we talk about how would you try to deal with the Browns in week one with two rookie offensive linemen and a running game that looks hilarious. The more I think about it, maybe they do try to rush Dalvin Cook in there, because maybe I'm nuts, but I think Dalvin Cook is very possibly able to resemble what he was in 2022. He got his head lopped off by Minnesota because his cap number was silly for 23.
Yeah.
Then he probably got a little too he flew a little too close to the sun and then couldn't really find a good job. The Jets call him in at the last second. Then Rodgers blows out his Achilles in 4 plays. And,
right.
I don't know that 23 represents what Dalvin Cook has left, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I'm high, but I don't think I am. I think he instantly gives them their best option. But I also don't know with the economics if they'll rush him back for week one and guarantee his veteran deal. So there's a lot there. But if I'm Mike McCarthy, it's 12 personnel. Stay ahead of the chains. It's some jet sweeps. It's to try to loosen things up a little bit. But man, if I've ever seen a 20-17 game on paper, I think it's got to be this one, right? Because I don't think Dallas wants to get into a track meet, and I know Cleveland, that's not their personality. Maybe it will be soon, but I kind of know the personality of both teams, and I just think the Cowboys will be more than happy to get to the room 10-7 in either direction if they can.
Yeah, and it's interesting on the other side of the ball. I say we feel confident, but there are certainly areas and I think the Browns, outside of Cleveland, the Browns offensive line, I think is even more highly thought of than it is here in Cleveland. But you got to work Jack Conklin back into the mix, and he has been injured pretty much every year.
Right.
You've got Jed Wills, who is a high draft pick that is now on his option year.
Yeah, Twitter loved him.
And yeah. And he has not proven, they haven't extended him for a reason.
Right.
And then you pick up this dude, we call him the Big Thanos up here in Cleveland, DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State, 6'8", 7,000 pounds.
Is he your swing now?
No, he looks, we don't know. We don't know what the depth chart is going to be. There's talk about Jack Conklin moving over to the left tackle and putting DeJuan Jones at right tackle and rolling that way and making Jed Wills your swing.
Wow.
So we don't know yet exactly how they're going to roll that out. Obviously, we don't know what the Ken Dorsey effect is going to be.
Yeah.
With Ken Dorsey now in the mix with Kevin Stefanski on play calling. So there are questions, but that to me on that side of the ball, that's the interesting thing. This offensive line, there's great players. Joel Bitonio, I think, is going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And Wyatt Teller's great. And you've got really good players all the way across. But that Dallas defensive line is coming. Micah Parsons is coming.
Yeah.
And Dexter Lawrence is coming. And it's going to be a real challenge for them, especially guys coming off injuries like our tackles. All of our tackles were hurt last year.
Right.
And then potentially switching positions. That's going to be a real interesting thing to watch to see if the Browns give Deshaun Watson the time he's going to need to get the ball to Amari and to Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore and those guys.
How healthy are you right now besides Chubb?
Really healthy?
Yeah. That's what I thought.
I shudder to say it. I shudder to say it because it's been a couple of years. But besides Nick Chubb, we've got Denzel Ward back. He had a concussion during one of their practices. He's back. Offensively, defensively, the health is in good shape. These guys should be ready to go.
This game's going to be so much fun.
Yes.
I can't. You talk about great week one matchups, and boy, this one, you just want to fast forward to Sunday because you start to play the game out in your head, and you look at all the different scenarios and all the great matchups, and there's a lot to like here. There's a lot to like. I think I know what to expect from the Mike Zimmer defense, and I think in many respects the idea is to, I mean, a lot of it feels geared to deal with Cleveland, which is great, but I don't know that it's geared to deal with the modern NFL as a whole. But, when you got Cleveland, New Orleans, and Baltimore in your first three, and San Francisco's like your fifth game, it's not bad to kind of spend the entire offseason gearing up to deal with the run at a better level than you did last year.
Right.
And then, as you get into the season and you have to deal with more high octane aerial attacks. And again, they all can do it. We're not dealing with football here, but it's just the whole thing was based on the craziest stat about Dan Quinn and what will get him a job everywhere he goes for the rest of his life is that the Cowboys over his 3 years as DC here were number 1 in the NFL in takeaways and number 2 in the NFL in sacks for 3 straight years.
Correct. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's everything a fan wants is, man, we want takeaways. We want sacks. We want to get on the passer. We want to get the ball, all these things. And the other thing is they weren't leaking giant plays behind them. They weren't, usually if you're chasing sacks and takeaways, you're gambling and you're doing things that cost you points and yards. No, Dan Quinn was good at that too. That was
the Browns before Jim Schwartz. And
the kryptonite was just these guys just get bullied when teams say, okay, we're just going to try to bully you. Here's how we're going to keep Micah Parsons from our quarterback. We're not going to pass the ball. We're going to run it right down your throat. And you know why? Because you're playing dime against our 12 personnel. I don't know what level of football you think that works at, but this is the National Football League.
Yeah.
And you know what? We might go 13. The Bills, if you go back to the Bills game, they got tackle eligible for half the game.
Yeah, right.
The Cowboys don't adjust. And then they run for 260, and they're like, man, what's wrong with our guys? They don't tackle very well. Yeah, they're giving up 50 pounds a man.
Correct.
Do you know why boxing and MMA have weight classes? Because 50 pounds a man gets you killed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it's just a return to fundamentals. So maybe the takeaways drop. But I think Zim is playing a defensive version of what Mike McCarthy wants offense to be, which is smash mouth. We want to score, but we also are not going to let you out physical us. So the fact that they're opening the season with several really physical teams like Cleveland, Baltimore, and San Francisco is going to be a great test. And, everyone's got a plan until they get hit in the mouth, right?
Yeah. And listen, the other fun thing about this game from a fan's perspective is both fan bases, I think, are foaming at the mouth for this game.
Right.
Because of everything we talked about, the offseason, last season, the way it ended.
Yep.
For you guys, it's getting the taste of that playoff game out of your mouths and just moving into this season. For us, it's finally getting a chance to see this team that started off really well last year and then they all fell apart and got hurt.
Yeah.
And now they're all back out there minus Nick Chubb. But both fans have a reason to be really excited. And again, the Cleveland Browns Stadium is going to be an absolute madhouse, a 425 game. So the people in the Muni lot out there are going to be nice and prepared all day.
I was there last time these two teams met in that stadium, and that was a downer because I was fired up about the Cleveland atmosphere, and there wasn't a ton of atmosphere that day. There were, everybody was having a good time, but the Browns 2016, maybe 2017. When was the last?
I don't know. I don't know if you remember, but they won a lot of games in that stretch. Yes,
and and the Cowboys were destroyed everybody with Zeke back then.
Correct.
And so things have changed.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, it's gonna be a lot of fun. But I'm not making the trip this time. But I did make it last time, and the night before we went and saw Ohio State play Nebraska, so it was a fun football weekend we had up in your neck of the woods.
I have a feeling you're going to feel the atmosphere through the TV.
I submit I will, and
it's going to be great.
Tom Brady doesn't talk too much.
Yeah, that would be great. Let's just you can put it on mute. It's fine.
That's right.
All right, Bob. Before I let you get out of here, because I know you got to run, but let's do the thing that we all love to do. Give me your prediction. Give me your prediction for this game on Sunday.
Yeah, that's well, I my gut is, and I don't even know what the spread is. Do you?
I don't.
Okay, it's okay. It doesn't matter. I see a 2017, but my brain tells me that a rookie left tackle and a rookie center in a hostile stadium is probably the difference. So I'm going to say the Cowboys start 0-1. With one on the chin in Cleveland, and you guys will probably emerge a little happier from that one.
The Browns are 1.5 points. So
okay,
I think you might be the first person on this show that has picked the Browns.
Really?
I think everybody I did last year, even like I don't know the Jets when they were all hurt. The person I had was like, I think the Jets are going to take this one. I was like, oh.
Well, okay. You're booking a lot of homers.
Apparently,
that's okay. I'm honored. This has been a lot of fun. There's no doubt, and I'd love to do it again. But our two teams don't play each other, but once every 4 years. So
they could play twice this year, Bob.
You know what? You're right, and I'll be back if that happens.
And you heard it here first. We got Bob Sturm on to give you part 2 of the history of the NFL and to preview the Super Bowl if the Browns and Cowboys both make it. Listen, let's give you the outro you deserve. Bob Sturm. Again, if you want to know what Cowboys people are talking about leading into the home opener here in Cleveland, into that huge Browns-Cowboys matchup, get over to the Sturm Stack. Look that up. Just Google that. The Sturm Stack. Bob gets real in depth. This is a guy that's done a lot of work with Troy Aikman, and he is in tune with the Dallas Cowboys. And he also hosts his show on 96.7 The Ticket in Dallas-Fort Worth, the Hard Line, the afternoon drive. So you can jump online and listen to that too if you want to hear more about the Cowboys stuff as you prepare for this game. Bob, this was awesome. I got to give a shout out to my boys, the Nelsons, Colin and Carol Nelson, who they were both like, you got to get Bob Sturm on. And so if I harassed you online, I apologize for that. But
no worries.
But really, it was awesome having you. Make sure you go follow him at SportsSturm on Twitter. And Bob, really appreciate you. And the last thing that I will say to you is go Browns.
I'll say giggle.
Hey, all right. Oh God, I hope that's right for this week. I hope that works out.
See you, man.
Thanks, Bob.
You got it.